there, welcome to Ridge Church. We're so glad that you're here with us, whether you're tuning in from right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, or from anywhere else. At Ridge Church, we know that life is messy, and we hope the message you're about to hear encourages you, challenges you, and reminds you that you're never alone. Thanks for listening in.
What's up, everybody? Good morning. Excited to be here with you. If I haven't met you before, like Seco was saying, my name's Patrick, and excited about what we get to talk about today to wrap up this series. But first, I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Wanted to address something. The last time I spoke here, my family had just gotten back from spending the summer together in Africa, and we had launched one of the many things that had happened. We had launched this youth kind of sports league, and there was a team of orphans in Malawi that had chosen this jersey. I'll show a picture. I wore it on stage last time that I spoke here. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of sharing about like some of the amazing work God's doing in Malawi, these amazing heroes that are leading this work in Malawi. I'll just wear like one of these jerseys. What the kids are wearing there, this whole team of orphans is the jersey they selected. They've got their names on the back, which is really cool, a number, like these professional level jerseys. So preach the sermon, kind of get done. I'm out in the foyer wearing this shirt. I think it's pretty cool. You guys think it's cool? It's a cool looking shirt. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right on. It's a cool shirt. And I kind of get like, I've got these, a lot of friends who are at Ridge Church who are actually from Brazil. These Brazilian friends, like several like couples. And they kind of like accost me in the foyer. They kind of like corner me. And I kind of see them coming. They kind of like call my name and like, oh, I've seen this look before. I know that look in the eyes. Like, hopefully it doesn't happen today. We'll see. But like, yeah, I accidentally offended some people like because of this sermon, because of what I was, usually it's like what Jesus says, but I'm just, trying to, definitely like take some people off. I could tell, like, I know that look in the eyes, like they're going to give me a piece of their mind. So my dear Brazilian brothers and sisters, they're going to give me a piece of their mind. It turns out they didn't have a problem with the sermon. They actually liked the sermon. It was fine. Good, all right, because I was like, what heresy did I say today? Because that's usually like what it is. No, it wasn't about that. It was about the shirt that I was wearing. And there's a tiny little crest like in the top, upper, I guess, left-hand side, which, I don't know, probably that day, nobody I wore it like both services, probably nobody noticed the little crest that's on the jersey, except for my Brazilian friends. It just says like AFA, it's the FA, the Football Association of Argentina. Argentina just so happens to be the biggest soccer rival to Brazil, and it probably would have been way better if I would have just been like speaking some heresy or like become a heretic or said something like horrible. That would have been less offensive to them than me like wearing this shirt. I'm like, guys, like chill out. Like, do you understand? Like, yeah, we understand. But I'm like, this team of orphan youths like picked this out. Like they said like which jerseys like this. They like the colors, like it's just a cool jersey. Just so tell you what. Maybe if Brazil ever gets a cool-looking jersey, maybe like one of the teams will choose that one. That didn't go great either. Like I wasn't helping, smooth things over. Okay, guys, like clearly I've offended you. I'm sorry. Please don't leave the church. Don't give up on God. Like God loves people in Argentina too. I promise. But what can I do? Can I do something to make it up to you? Like what? I don't know. What would help? You're like, you know what, Patrick? Next time you speak at Ridge Church, we need you to wear a Brazil soccer jersey to make up for it. So I don't think any of them are in the room right now, so it's kind of wasted. I think they come at 11 o'clock. But check out what I found. Yeah, right on. You guys are excited. Not only is it I think it's the newest, like latest and greatest Brazil team, like soccer jersey. It's straight up like Christ the Redeemer, the famous statue, like right there in Rio, right? And I'm like, oh, you know what? We're going to be in church, like, Brazil's repping like Jesus on their jerseys, like most professional clubs. I don't know if you notice, they've got like sponsors that pay them a bunch of money. It's usually like beer and like gambling like websites. Like Brazil's like, pulling out all the stops. Like we got Jesus right there on the front, so I don't know. I hope this isn't distracting to anyone today. It's a little bit distracting to me. Speaking of church, I've got a confession to make. That was just something that was extra. Got a confession to make since we're in church. I'm a horrible person. Just throw that out. A horrible person. Let me tell you why. I got to tell you a quick story. There's a library that's near our home, like kind of our nearest library, and it's really close to my kids' school, and so we're there all the time. I would say I've been on there at least 3 to 4 days a week. It's kind of on the other side of like the neighborhood from my kids' school, and it's actually right across the street from where my wife works, and that library is like my happy place. I don't know, anybody in here like the library or like a bookstore or something? It's like your happy place? Just me. Wow, okay. So I'm a nerd. I'll own it, like claim it. I'm a reading junkie. So are my children. My wife's with all of you guys. She can't stand the library. She hates it. She's like, I never find anything. But anyway, stop by to see her at work, drop the kids off at school, and it's just easy to stop in. Do you know you can check out up to 100 books at a time per account? I know that because that's when they cap you. So my kids like to read all the time. I read all the time. They love us around there. My kids go to like Project Scientist and like all these different kind of clubs. Like my daughter goes to like Teens versus Food and like these baking like classes. It's really cool. And like everybody's really nice. And so it's a great place to be. Sometimes I'll go like work from there as an office. Anyway, there's a special like parking spot that I really want. It's what I'm going for every time I go to the library. You have like parking spots that mean a great deal to you. You know, it's like you feel kind of special if you land that parking space. It's the closest spot to the door. They've got one of those overhang walkways things, so if it's like raining, you know, or just like nasty outside, when you step out the driver door, you're basically already under it, you know, so you don't even have to get wet. It's easy for the kids because it's just right onto the sidewalk, like not walking through a dangerous, like driving lanes of parking lots, you know. But I don't know, 3 days a week, I would say, at least, there are things blocking all the front parking spaces. And I just happened to, I thought about this. I was like, you know what? I was back at the library and I took this photo. This is just one of them. On the day that I'm going to tell you this story happened, I realized I'm a horrible person. It was another thing that's there. I want to say they're there like 1 or 2 days a week called Project Outpour. And it looks kind of like this, like a big truck. And it's just showers for people who don't have access to showers, usually like homeless people without access to a home. They come, have showers. There's like an amazing team of volunteers. They got towels, shampoo, soap, all the stuff provided, and they can just kind of take their time, get themselves cleaned up. This is Novant Health. Obviously, my wife used to actually work on one of these as a nurse for the other big healthcare system. And this is like kids who don't have access really to a regular doctor, like they can walk from the neighborhood right here and just kind of everything can be taken care of, like their medical needs. There's another one at like Alliance Health. Anyway, several days a week, this is happening. You can see that one where like the little sign is, that's my spot. You see what I'm talking about? Like that's where I like to park, all right? And so on this particular day, I snapped this photo after. I was like, oh, you know what? I'll share that. I'll make my confession in church on Sunday. It was the shower one, you know, and I could see the people were lined up. They had like their plastic like garbage bags. They were ready to go in. And I guess usually I think at my head, I had my daughter with me actually on this particular day. I pull in. It's really cold. I hate the cold. It's really cold. That's like really, just right there next to the heat. I pull in. I'm like, oh yeah, shoot. You know, these jokers are here today. And I go to the other side of the front. Oh yeah. I never had, on this side, it's all like handicap parking up against the building. On the other side of the little like entranceway. Oh man, I said it out loud. We got to park all the way back here, like 10 more feet away. And I realized I said it out loud, which made me realize I usually think this, in my mind and heart. I'm like, well, I'm a horrible person. Like 10 feet, my parking spot, like I've been a horrible person a long time, and it makes me feel better to be able to confess it in church because, like, what a better world for everybody. Like, 10-foot worse world for me, but what a better world for, like, kids who don't have access to health care. Like, what an amazing, beautiful thing, Novant Health, the Himby Children's Hospital. Like, what a cool thing they're up to. What a great idea someone started a long time ago for folks who maybe had trouble walking, and they can park in these special, like, we should probably give them the ones closest. Like, why is that one ever open? We should probably always be like for them. Oh, it's open for people to take showers and kids to get medical help that need help. This is like a silly reveal. And this is where I want us to dive in today. We're going to read some words that Jesus spoke long ago. And I just want us to be able to unpack the idea of living a life of meaning, because I think most of us, I think all of us in the room, like we raised our hands for this, we would say we want to live a life of meaning. We want to live a purposeful life. I think that's in us all. I would argue, from my perspective, what I believe, I think God put that in us. And I get it. Maybe there's people all across the spectrum here today. You don't know quite maybe what you think about God, or maybe you're here like wrestling with God. And I think that's okay, because I think even beyond God putting that in us, I think we all agree there's something innate in humans. We all long for living a life of meaning or finding meaning or purpose in our lives. But this silly reveal in my heart that day at the library, I think it made me start thinking about this question. I think it's the key question to ask when it comes to a life of meaning. Do I want a better world for me? Or do I want a better world for we? Do I want a better world for everyone or just for me? Because I think one of those paths leads to both. But the other path, I would argue, leads to neither. Because if I chase a better world for we, for all of us, I think I'm going to get a better world for me. But if I just chase, like so many people do, a better world for me, it's going to lead to neither one, and I'm going to miss out on a life of meaning. And I think it's easy for us to trip into living a meaningless life because of the world that we live in, the like culture that we live in. In fact, if you just kind of follow the American dream, like kind of the way your parents did it, maybe your neighbors, your friends do it, if you follow like all the marketing where like our culture is leading, and you just kind of don't really critically think about how we're living our lives, we just go with the flow of what the marketing companies, like the richest people, the politicians, what they're spending billions of dollars on to try to get us to do, then we'll quite possibly accidentally live meaningless lives. Now, hopefully not totally meaningless. Hopefully there'll be some meaning for kind of me and mine, you know, like the people in my household. But I'm talking about finding meaning outside our four walls. And that kind of leads us to this part 3 of the series that we're in. We're ending the series today called A Better Question. If you missed parts 1 and 2, our lead pastor, Chris Brown, you should go back and catch up. Much better sermons than you hear from me today, unfortunately. But just to catch you up in case you missed it, or to remind you if you're here and you forgot already, we essentially, especially maybe around January, New Year's resolutions, we focus on this question: what should I do about me? That's not necessarily a bad question, right? We need to spend some time on that. We need to improve ourselves. I think that's a great thing. But all series we've been focused on what Chris has been calling a better question, because this question kind of shifts our focus from what we should do, what should I do about me, to what needs to be done around me, or what should I do about we, I would say. I don't know. I think maybe one of the first times we were back in this building, like kind of after COVID, I remember preaching this sermon. Not many people were here for it because it was right after COVID, so maybe I'll preach it again one day. But I talked about shalom, and shalom is this idea of what God wants to bring back to the world. It's kind of how the world began. There was shalom. There was like everything was right. Everything was how God wants it to be, and that's what God is returning our world to. And I had this little thing I felt like pretty smart to come up with it, that shalom is a we thing, not a me thing. Like shalom isn't meant for just me. In fact, if we all don't have shalom, then I am not able to experience shalom. So I think this better question, it kind of shifts the focus from what I need to do about me to what needs to be done around me, to this kind of idea of shalom, what God's up to in the world, to what needs to be done in the world, what needs to be done in my community, what needs to be done in somebody else's world besides me. And the better question, just curious, if you're here the first couple weeks, do you shout it out? What's the better question Chris Brown's been talking about this whole series? What breaks your heart? Yeah, awesome. Nice job. What breaks your heart? This is the question. And if you're like me, I think there's things that break your heart. If you think about it long enough, things that you see in our world, maybe things you see like on your street, things you see potentially like in your house, things you see, people you care about, things you see in parts of the world that you've maybe never been to. You're bothered by a lot of things. A lot of things break your heart. A lot of things break my heart. But I think the point of this question we're trying to get into is there one thing? Like, is there kind of like one or a couple main things that break your heart in such a way you're like, oh, it shouldn't be that way. That should not exist in our world. To the point that it's beyond irritating to you, it's beyond concerning. It's like somebody needs to do something about that, and I think I need to be one of the someones. What breaks your heart like that? I think we're meant to pay attention to it. Even if the thing that breaks your heart the most is way beyond your control. I think usually it will be. It's like, I think beyond what we can solve or what we can fix. I still think we've got to figure out a way to give a piece of our life away to that issue, whatever it is. Look for ways to do it, even if it's bigger than you can solve, because it probably will be, but there's something so valuable about allowing a broken heart to lead us to the place where we can just give a portion of our lives away beyond us. Because I think, more than likely, whatever is breaking your heart in that moment, in that brokenness of your heart is aligning with God's heart because God's heart is also broken over these broken things in God's world and God's meaning to bring shalom back to the world and make all of those things right. So you're actually in that moment, your heart is aligning with God's heart. And it's a beautiful thing. I believe we should pay attention to. But before we go any further, thanks. I don't know why I always get a little bit of dry mouth up here. I appreciate you. Let's be honest for a moment, though. If nothing bothers you that doesn't benefit you, think about that for a second. If the only things that bother you are like, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't even say they break your heart. Maybe almost nothing breaks your heart, but things that bother you are only things that would benefit you if they were solved. Like if the only thing that bothers you is how inflation affects you or your high electric bill or how much you're paying for groceries or gas, Like if the only thing that matters to you in all these elections that you vote in are just how kind of the outcome is going to affect you, not so much anybody else. If all the things that kind of break your heart or bother you, if they all just come back to you, or like if those things were solved, you would be better off. But not so much, like maybe secondarily, other people would be better off, right? If inflation were less, but you're not worried about that. You're worried about how it affects you. If nothing bothers you that doesn't benefit you, then that should bother you. That should bother us. Because I think if we ever find ourselves, and we all go through seasons of life, I think, like we all probably have been in a season where we're kind of just focused on us and things that bother us and making those things better. If we ever find ourselves in one of those seasons, if you find yourself in that season right now, that should bother you because I think you're in a danger zone that you maybe don't even realize. You're in a danger zone of potentially wasting your life, wasting a large portion of your life, wasting a season of your life, living this portion of your life without any meaning. And Jesus is going to go right at this in the passage we're about to read. He's going to tell us the reason we should take this seriously. And I think even if, we're about to dive into the Jesus section, if you're here and you're like, I don't know, like, was Jesus God? Can I trust what Jesus said? I think you can bring all those questions to church. I think that's amazing. I think God's got room for that doubt, those questions that you have. But I think this goes even like outside the bounds of if you're a Christian or you would call yourself a Jesus follower or not. Because we all belong for a meaningful life. We all want this. But there's a danger that's lurking for all of us, Jesus follower or not, but especially, I think, for those of us who are following Jesus and meant to join God in his mission in the world. There's a danger that's lurking that is trying to cheat you out of your brief opportunity to live a meaningful life. So it's so important. And Jesus thought it was. That's why he talked about it in the way that he's about to talk about it. And Luke actually brings this story to us, the Gospel of Luke. Luke, just quick bit of background, if it's helpful, if you're kind of like new to understanding the Bible or checking the Bible out. Luke is one of the four Gospels, and he was a Jesus follower in the first century. Before that, he was a doctor and then became kind of a historian, so pretty smart guy. Wasn't actually one of the apostles of Jesus, but he knew a bunch of them. Like he was friends with James, Jesus' brother, John, Jesus' BFF, Peter, pretty famous dude. Interviewed all these people who knew Jesus, were around Jesus, and was just like, hey, we need to have a written down, really orderly, organized account of things Jesus said, what Jesus taught, Jesus' life. And so it's pretty amazing, I think. We have that. It's called the Gospel of Luke. It's in your New Testament. I was reading it this week. Like we have what he wrote down from all these interviews. It's amazing to me. It's a thing we shouldn't take for granted. But it's kind of a weird thing that happens in this. Jesus is teaching about something totally different than what we're going to talk about today. He's in the middle of kind of a sermon, if you will, or this like talk to all these, I imagine like, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of people are gathered. It's way more interesting to listen to than me. But in the middle of it, this guy stands up and like shouts out, like somehow gets Jesus' attention. He was maybe far back in the crowd. Maybe Jesus couldn't even see him. He's like, hey, Jesus, tell my brother to like divide up the inheritance with me. Like, what? I'm talking about something you're just like, I don't know, it would be fairly similar to if someone stood up right now. Hey, Patrick, tell my husband, like, settle this dispute for you. Will you, Patrick? Settle this dispute for us. Probably my worst fear of something that could happen right now in this moment, like any speaker's like worst nightmare. Please don't do that. I just don't know what I would say. Like, I was kind of in the middle of something. Professional counselor I could recommend you to, like afterwards, we catch up. But Jesus, being smarter than me, and probably not too much thrown by this coming at him, was like, you know what, I'll use this as an opportunity. He just kind of like stops teaching about what he was talking about and kind of goes this different route. And maybe it was an answer to the question. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. See what you guys think. He wanted to talk about this, and so this is the direction he went. Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Then Jesus said to them, watch out. be on your guard against all kinds of greed. And I'm thinking the guy who asked the question was like, would you just help me? Like, tell my brother, like, this is not right. Like, I don't know, where did this come from? I have no idea. Is the dad dead? Like, the inheritance? We don't have any context. But Jesus, like, says, be on guard. Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. That's what Jesus wants to say. Now, I love the Greek word, this translated greed. I'm bummed about our English language and its lack of, we need a lot of words, I think, more than greed. The actual word in this Luke chapter 12 that Jesus spoke like in Greek is pleonexia. I think we've got it here. Yeah, kind of an English transliteration. Pleonexia. Could we all like say this together? I think it's a pretty easy one to say. You guys ready? Pleonexia. Awesome. I bet there's a bunch of you watching in a collective cafe. You probably didn't say it. Would you say it with us this time? We're all going to say it together. Maybe there's like 3 of you sitting on a couch together and you don't know them. And it's like, I'm not saying that. It's weird. But please, just come on. Easy word. I really want to burn this into our brains because it's such a more powerful word than greed, I think, for us, even though it's a different language. All right, you guys ready? Pleonexia. Awesome. Thanks, collective cafe, gentlemen on the couch. Kind of sounds like a disease, right? Like, oh, I hate to break it to you, man, but you've been diagnosed with pleonexia. It is actually kind of like a disease. It's not that far off. That's why I love this Greek word. It's the disease of insatiable, the disease of like never enoughness, or it's never enough for me-ness is the thing. Like the disease of, they got a newer one, mine's older, I should probably get a newer one to, keep up with theirs. Mine's looking a little bad. I need like an upgrade, the disease of discontent, the disease of always looking around at everything that I have and just need like a little bit more. I need a little bit better. It's not as cool as it used to be. And there just isn't ever going to be enough to fill this insatiable bucket inside of me that I think needs to be filled with whatever you fill in the blank. Literally, pleonexia. I was a Greek nerd too, not only a book nerd, but like I minored in Greek in college. Pleo, I remember that's like in a ton of words, and it just means like more than enough or extra or like kind of an abundance, an overage, if you will. And so it's attached to like a bunch of other Greek words, like a lot of something or like almost too much or like just extra, more than enough of something. Nexia, though, is usually around like acquiring something or like possession or like acquisition, right? So literally, not so much greed, because I think I read greed. I don't know about you guys. I read greed in the New Testament. It's like, yeah, that's obviously talking to somebody else. Like, doesn't feel applicable to me at all. I assume probably most of us in the room are like that. Greed is just like somebody way out there, some really, really rich person that's, like paying money for his parking spot to run the like shower bus like off the library. Like that's like greedy, like, not me. Pleonexia, though, Jesus literally saying, watch out for, be on your guard against getting more than enough. Oh, but most of us are like, oh, Jesus, that's actually like my goal in life is to get more than enough. You want me to be on guard against it? Be against having more than enough? I love the NIRV, the New International Version, but it's a reader's version, so it's on a 3rd and 4th grade level. They actually translate it this way. It's what I encourage like my kids to read, but they want to read the like Bibles that look cool on the outside. But I'm like, no, trust me, these words are easier for you to understand. They translate it this way. Instead of greed, pleonexia is translated wanting to have more and more and more. Yeah, it's kind of like a disease. Jesus says you've got to watch out for it because it's the opposite of shalom. If shalom is everyone having enough, pleonexia is like me thinking I never have enough, and the idea of everyone having enough doesn't even cross my mind. So I want to ask you this question. Are you on your guard against pleonexia, having too much? Are you watching out for this dangerous thing, this thing Jesus said was dangerous, called pleonexia? Jesus said to be on your guard against it. Are you? Don't feel nervous. No, you're not. It's okay. Like none of us are on our guard against pleonexia. You know why? We're only on our guard against, we're only watching out for things that we perceive as a threat. You guys follow me? A lot of people look like me in the room today. Some like pale skin, it's wintertime. Think to summer, you're at the beach, the sun's out. We haven't seen the sun. Where are we living nowadays? Like, did we move to the UK or like Seattle or some depressing place? Well, where's the sun? But anyway, imagine a time when the sun is back. Do you wear sunscreen? Are you a sunscreen wearer? Be bold. Put up your hands. Surely more of you than like love the library like me. Okay, a lot of sunscreen wearers. Okay, that's good. And why do you wear sunscreen? We're on our guard against something. We're watching out for something. I was in Malawi like maybe 5 years ago and was with this amazing like hero who's leading so much great work, who we're still partner with. His name's Jimmy. And we're kind of in between like visiting these projects. And it's like, I don't know, 105 degrees or something like horrible, like, awful heat. Get out the sunscreen, like spraying it on. I've got like the like rubbing all over. And Jimmy's just chilling. Patrick, you are afraid of the sun. Very much, Jimmy. My Mzungu skin is very like on guard against sunburns. They hurt. I don't want to get skin cancer. All these, like I see it as a threat, and so I'm on my guard against it. A lot of you wearing sunscreen. Same show of hands. Anybody carry around, or like even if you own it, duck repellent, geese repellent? Anybody own some of that? Didn't know it existed until yesterday or the day before. You buy some on Amazon, a really big thing, goose stopper, $87 and something. You can get anything on Amazon for a whole gallon, Nobody's walking around with this stuff. Why not? Why didn't I even know it existed? Anybody know it existed even? You ever heard of this? Because we don't see ducks, geese as a threat. But do you know there's about 3,000 duck, geese bites just in our country alone every single year? Biting people. They got some sharp teeth. They do some damage. I heard people going to the hospital. I had to research all this. There's only 60-something shark bites per year in the entire world. We got thousands of these. I'm on my guard against sharks. Bears, that kind of scares me. Like if I was going to be in a place where there's bears, I feel like a bear is a threat to my life, my livelihood, I would, if they had bear spray, I don't know. I'm assuming they got something. They got goose spray or whatever. So they got some bear spray. I see bears as a threat. I see sharks as a threat. If they would let me, put something on to keep sharks away. Don't see geese and ducks as a threat. So I'm not going to waste $87 and whatever on some goose repellent. But as soon as we're aware of a threat, we're kind of on our guard against it. But we don't really live our lives looking out for things that we don't perceive as an actual threat. But Jesus says we should be on our guard against this never enoughness, this pleonexia, this greed. Because pleonexia, it's like really subtle, really sneaky, really sinister. It wears a lot of disguises. Disguises itself as a virtue, I think, like as good things. They're kind of like honorable things in our culture. Like I'm careful, or I manage my things really well. I've got nice things, or I'm just kind of trying to take care of my things. Actually, no, don't touch my nice things, please. Those are really nice things that I want to be a good steward of. All these like virtuous things. Like I work really hard. I kind of deserve this. I've earned this. I'm just trying to, take care of my family. Can hide behind things like, hey, Jesus, tell my brother to split things up fairly. I just want to get like my fair share. What's coming to me? This is something we just can't see in the mirror. I thought about it. I heard Seiko talking about group sign up and just kind of like having your people like in a small group, which is amazing for things like this that we can't see in the mirror. We're never really able to quite see as easily as someone else can see it in you and maybe be invited in the context of this intimacy of a small group, or of like kind of having your people, you're both following after Jesus together, to be able to point it out to you. Hey, I think you might have some like never enoughness, some pleonexia, like a little more focused on yourself than others. But hang on, why do I need to be on guard against this? Like, so what if I'm greedy? What if you just admit it? Yeah, I'm greedy. So what? What's the big deal? So what? I've got my stuff. I don't really care what other people think. Why should I fear pleonexia? Why should I watch out for it, be on my guard against it? Like, Jesus, you're going to have to give me a little bit more. And Jesus is about to say, we're going to find in this passage, let me tell you what's at stake. Your life is at stake. Literally the thing Jesus came to earth to do. Died for you, came back to life in order that you could have this life to the full, this abundant life, what John said Jesus called eternal life, the life of the ages, the life that is truly life, the kind of life of living in God's kingdom, the type of life, the goods of life that makes life worth living. That's what's at stake, and we don't even realize it. Because of greed in all its subtle forms, it has the potential to rob our lives of meaning. Here's kind of the bottom line if, you got to leave early or you're going to do your grocery list. Pleonexia, or greed, it ensures that we're always an end in and of ourselves, never a means to something else, to someone else, to anything beyond us or bigger than us. And if you're never a means to something beyond yourself, I don't think we can ever experience meaning like we were meant to. So Jesus, we'll get back to continue with his teaching. He gives them a truth. And when I read this truth, I think we're all going to be like, well, duh. Like, yeah, that's true. I agree with Jesus. I don't even know if I believe Jesus was God. I don't know about this whole church thing, but I agree with that statement like Jesus makes. Everybody knows that. But he says something that's so obvious, like Jesus understands. I know you all know, but we forget it or we don't really live it, even though we know it's true. Jesus is like, I know you know it, but are you living it? I know you believe it, but is that belief informing how you live, your actions, your decisions, your choices? Because I think what we do is what we believe, not what we say what we believe. Not what we say we believe, that's not what we believe. What we do, how we live, is actually what we believe. It's actually the end of this verse 15. Jesus says, but watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. In other words, at no point in our lives do we kind of equal the value of my life and the value of my stuff or like what I would own. And I think everybody in the room, we're all on the same page, right? Like, duh. Like, of course not. But Jesus, I think, is like, yeah, but look at how you live. Look at how all of you are living your life. Watch the way you prioritize, the way you spend your money, the way you make your choices, the way you spend your time. Look at how you guard your time. You guard your assets, your resources. You're kind of on your guard against all the wrong things for all the wrong reasons. I'm telling you to watch out, be on your guard for something else kind of sneaking in the back door. Regardless of the amount of our possessions, the value of our possessions, of our stuff, we would never equate that with life. I mean, life and stuff, that's two completely different categories. I think we're all on the same page there. But pleonexia, dirty word, tricks us. So we live our actual lives as if life does sometimes consist in an abundance of possessions. Jesus goes on to tell this story, a parable, kind of a story with a point Jesus is trying to make. He made it up. I don't know if you're on the spot or if you've been thinking about it. I think this parable he tells 2,000 years ago to this group of people, this big audience probably gathered in front of him, I think it's even more relevant today for us right now because of the time and the culture that we live in. And I'll go ahead and tell you the point of the story in case I lose you during the story. Here's the point. Here's why Jesus tells the story, is to illustrate the power of having extra to rob you while it enriches you. I think that's why it's so tricky. That's why it's so sneaky. That's why we don't realize it. Like we're just getting richer and richer and richer and richer. And it's actually robbing us of what actually matters, robbing us of living a meaningful life, which is the point of what we're talking about today. It's a paradox. We think we're getting richer, we're actually getting robbed. So here's the story Jesus told. Verse 16 of Luke 12. He told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. So the rich get richer, even in the first century. That's exactly what it means. Somebody who had extra just got extra. And he thought to himself, this man thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. I feel like it should have been obvious. You get extra. He saw it as a problem, not an opportunity. I don't know, a year ago, I was preaching a sermon, and literally the week I was preaching the sermon, you can't make this stuff up, I ordered 1.5 gallons of milk. Walmart delivered it. I took in my 1.5 gallons that I needed. I was going on a trip and leaving 1 gallon behind for my kids. I was taking 1/2 gallon. Here's a photo. I came back out. The guy left. I already took my 1.5 gallons. Here's 9 extra gallons. They delivered 10.5, like somehow an extra zero. What do you do with 9 extra gallons of milk? What you do is you get delivered 10.5 gallons of milk. I was kind of silly about it. I went through this whole sermon. I had a whole slide. It was like, I could go out and buy an extra refrigerator just to fit it all. I can hoard it. I can binge on it. I can try to sell it and like make a profit, like make some extra, all this stuff. People started to snicker. People started to get bored. Like people were like wanting to just shout out. I think I even heard like, duh, like just give it away, man. Like walk around the neighborhood, give it away. Duh. And I wish it were always so obvious what to do with all my extra. Like this guy with his grain, he saw it as a problem to solve. It was actually an opportunity that he missed. And the reason he didn't see it as an opportunity is because of pleonexia, because of his greed, dare I say it. That sounds like such a bad word, such a dirty word. I got extra. What do I do with all my extra? Now, Here's the point in the sermon. I was tempted to just go ahead and try to apply this to our lives. I was thinking we could talk about collectively, I assume all of us in the same boat, like my closet, at home that can't even fit all my clothes. It's just too crammed full of too much extra clothes. Man, I need an extra closet. Our attics, our basements, that special storage unit, we had to get our house can't even fill all our stuff. We got to have an extra place to keep all our stuff. There's extra bank accounts. We have our retirement accounts, the Roth IRAs, the 529s for our kids, the extra car in the driveway, the extra guest room, and then the extra one on top of that for the guests that don't even come, my extra refrigerator to hold all my stuff, the extra TVs so I can have one in all the room. But I decided I'm not gonna talk about any of that stuff because I have all those things, let's just pretend Jesus is telling a story. Let's let him get back to his story, right? He's talking about grain and extra that, this is long ago. I think it's a little bit too uncomfortable to bring it to us right now. So this guy is all right, what should I do? No place to store my extra. His assumption is a bummer, because I think it's our assumption sometimes. His assumption was, since it came to me, since it ended up with me, since I earned the money, since I, had the field, made the crops, it's obviously for me and mine. But that's wrong. It's actually, when God blesses us, it's meant to be used for the blessing of the world, going all the way back to God's original kind of vision and plan through Abraham. I'm going to bless my people, God's people are blessed, so that through their blessing, all the world could be blessed. We're meant to be not a means to an end, but a conduit, a means to a greater end than ourselves. Verse 18 and 19, then he said, Jesus telling the story, this is what he said, the guy, the fictional guy Jesus made up, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my perfectly good barns, I'll build bigger ones, and there I'll store all my surplus grain. I just need more room for all my extra stuff. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. That sounds pretty good. I'll just save it to consume it later, because if it came to me, it's obviously for me, which is a really bad case of pleonexia. This guy thought he was an end in and of himself, not a means to an end, something bigger beyond himself. I think one thing Jesus' audience definitely had in common with us, we're pretty envious of this guy, it's not a bad life. Got it made, got so much extra, it's don't have to worry about anything. Forrest Gump, one of my favorite movies, I love the scene where he gets the letter with the old Macintosh logo, and Lieutenant Dan said we invested in Apple, we don't have to worry about money anymore. And Forrest Gump's that's great, it's one less thing, to worry about. That sounds great. We're kind of envious of that. Scholars say that it would have been obvious to this audience that any fictional man with so much extra, building these bigger barns, would be surrounded everywhere he looked in every direction by just absolute poverty everywhere. We're kind of shielded from that. We could pretend the rest of our lives that there's not poverty, in our city, in our world. We could just be our modern world is set up so we can just kind of ignore it and not have to worry about it. It wasn't that way in the first century. The workers that he was probably using to build these barns likely had starving children with not enough to eat as they worked on bigger barns to store his extra. The point Jesus is about to make goes right to the heart of the deception of pleonexia, of greed. It's filling us up with all these things, fills up our bank account, our egos, our schedule, but it's robbing us at the same time. Because in our attempt to be full, we become empty. It's the way it works. I'm guessing you're thinking about culture, you're thinking about people you know. This is the way it goes in our lives sometimes. That's the point Jesus is illustrating through this parable. The guy felt full, but he was empty because he missed an opportunity to live a meaningful life. As happy as this guy was about his future, eat, drink, be merry, kick back, verse 20, God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you." Maybe some of us were thinking he's wise. The guy's got to be wise. He got rich, and now he's getting even richer. But he's not a fool because of what he owned. I think God would say he's a fool because he was owned by what he owned. He wasn't on guard against this sneaky thing, pleonexia. And then Jesus presses in with this amazing question at the end of this verse. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? Your life is demanded from you. Who's going to get all this? Not him, not this guy, but not because he was generous, because he was dead, he was gone. Not because he chose a life of meaning and like, oh, I'm excited, this breaks my heart and I want to give my extra away to this thing. Just, he didn't get the choice, it was gone, taken from him. Here's kind of the punch in the gut line as Jesus finishes. He kind of pulls out of the parable, addresses his audience directly, addresses us as an audience now directly. Verse 21, Jesus says, this is how it will be. This is how it is. This is how it goes with whoever stores up things for themselves. Just like gets extra, pleonexia, extra acquiring, more than enough acquiring, but is not rich toward God. This is how it goes for anyone who is kind of an end in and of themselves and not a means to a greater end beyond themselves. The opportunity is here, like being rich toward God. That's like the alternative. It's a phrase used a lot in the Gospels. I don't want to take the time to dive all the way into it, but I think you understand the idea of being rich toward God. If God has this project in the world, he wants to make all things right. He wants to bring shalom, everyone having enough equality. Anytime we're participating in being rich toward others, joining God in this project, we're being rich toward God. That's the opportunity. That's what's going to give us a life of meaning. This no strings attached giving, no strings attached serving. It's the bottom line. I think I said it already. I'll put it on the screen just for us to remember. The secret, I think, to living a meaningful life is becoming a means to an end that goes beyond us, goes beyond you. It's bigger than you. It's about someone else. And Jesus, I think because he loves you, because he loves us, we have this. Like Luke wrote it down. Thanks, Luke. This is awesome. We have this warning from Jesus himself. Watch out. Be on guard against pleonexia because it robs our lives of meaning. Jesus is inviting us into a meaningful, purposeful life because that's where meaning is found, where happiness is found, where joy is found. That's the invitation for all of us. We've got to find a way to be a means to an end that doesn't end with us, to not be greedy with our lives, to choose something that doesn't benefit me and commit some portion of me to it. The band's coming back out in just a minute to kind of wrap us up with one last song. And as they do, I just want to ask this question, a better question for our whole series, one last time for this series, just to leave it with you. What breaks your heart? What needs to change in our world? Can you carve off a piece of you and invest it in that thing that breaks your heart? If nothing breaks your heart, find something quickly. Just pick something, start on it. I guarantee you as you dive into it, it'll start to break your heart more and more and more. And maybe you're thinking, I'm only 30. Maybe when I'm 40, I'll start that. Or like once the kids are out of the house, like, yeah, we'll dive into that. Jesus is inviting us now. Why wait to experience this wonderful, beautiful life of meaning? So donate some time, some money, donate something, find a way, because we know what makes a life worth celebrating. The value of my life is going to be determined and celebrated by how much of it I was actually willing to give away. You probably this weekend celebrating the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who lived so much of this with his life. He didn't become an end in and of himself. He gave his life away, quite literally. But the life he had here on earth, he was giving it away, becoming a means to an end for others, to something bigger than himself. You've probably heard this quote. You'll maybe hear it over the weekend, tomorrow on your day off. He said this: life's most persistent and urgent question is this: what are you doing for others? That's a better question. What breaks your heart that you can do for others? Go do something about it. I think Jesus wants us to understand the power of becoming a means to an end that doesn't end with us, that's beyond us, that's bigger than us. So what breaks your heart? Dive into it. And whatever you do, like Jesus warned us, like Jesus warned me, take this warning on board. Watch out. Be on your guard against getting too much extra, against pleonexia, against greed, because it can rob us. It can rob you of the thing we're actually longing for, living a meaningful life. Let me pray for us. God, you're awesome. Thank you. Thanks for your word. Thanks that, Luke was able to write this stuff down so we know the things that Jesus said. We know that Jesus warns us to be on guard against these things we think we want, we think it'll be better for us, but really they're robbing our lives of meaning. Help us learn to follow you better in this way. God, let us sit with the question, if we haven't already, about what breaks our heart. And God, thanks even for the capacity as humans. What a cool thing that you give us the capacity to have our heart broken and align with your heart in that way. The things that are breaking your heart, we have the ability as humans to have our heart broken for those things. God, lead us to dive into those things. And as we do, reject this idea of having too much extra for ourselves, but instead find a life of meaning, a life of purpose that is part of your plan, is part of your dream for us. Thanks for all of that. Just help us do it. Help us live it. Not just know it and understand it, but to actually live it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for listening today. If you're in the Charlotte or Matthews, North Carolina area, you're always invited to catch us online or join us in person at one of our 2 service experiences, 9:30 and 11 a.m. in the Ridge Auditorium, or streaming live to our cafe venue. We hope to see you soon.